Hey, what it do, y'all? What it do, what it do, what it do. This particular video is in my playlist titled I Am Lone Wolf 1.0, or simply titled Lone Wolf 1.0. Not sure which one. I haven't really done a Lone Wolf video in a long time. And just because most people attach lone wolf to sigma male, and over here I like to say that lone wolf and sigma male are not the same. See, long before there was this idea of sigma male, there was lone wolf, and I've always seen myself as a lone wolf, right? I won't go into too much detail about why I make the distinction between lone wolf and sigma male. However, maybe what I'm about to bring up tonight will bring in even more insight to what I've already have been talking about, especially if you go check out my playlists about Lone Wolf 1.0. I even have a playlist titled Lone Wolf 2.0, or it might just be either or titled I Am Lone Wolf 1.0, I Am Lone Wolf 2.0. Okay? But let's add more to this conversation because over here, I speak about excuse me, over here, I speak about such things in a way you'll never ever hear. Not just what you've never heard before. What if I were to tell you that just like lone wolf and sigma male are not the same, as well as lone wolf and sigma female are not the same? What if I were to tell you that lone wolf and black sheep are not the same? See, actually, someone that identifies with the sigma background, they actually have more in common with the black sheep than they do the lone wolf. Here's what I mean. Well, because the sheep is a herd animal and it is part of a herd, okay? Yes, a sheep is a herd animal and it's part of a herd. The black sheep stands out from that herd. Nevertheless, it is still a herd animal. Now, in that sense, it might not be treated the same. It might not even be put back in the herd. How will it survive? That's a question I would like to know. More of an answer of myself. Yeah. Now, let's not even try to compare sheeps to goats. They actually are two separate types of animals, a sheep and a goat. Okay? So keep that in mind as well. But yes, simply put, given that the sheep is a herd animal, the wolf is a solitary animal for the most part. Even the gray wolves, despite them being in a pack, they are still solitary creatures that just so happen to come together to start a family. Only the species of gray wolves that I'm aware of do this. I believe red wolves do too, but wolves mostly live by themselves, okay? And on top of that, even amongst the pack, wolves are naturally dispersive creatures. So a lot of times, a wolf would rather its space. Even amongst the pack, it'd rather have its own space. Wolves are very introverted amongst each other, but they do have a social life, hence the pack life, like the gray wolf per se. Okay? So, in essence, wolves do not think like herd animals, just like sheeps do. So, when one tries to say that a black sheep and a lone wolf go hand in hand, they actually do not. The only thing that simulates or makes similar of a black sheep and a lone wolf is that they both actually stand out. Now, let's go to this idea of a lone wolf, even though I don't technically believe in a lone wolf in itself. Wolves are naturally loners. Now, you see a wolf by itself is more or less a wolf that is alone at that time. Okay. But it can survive on its own alone if it has to, because, like I said, wolves are actually solitary creatures. They're naturally dispersive, even though some of the species of wolves do live in a pack, like the gray wolves do. And I believe also the red wolves do. Okay. So this is a totally different mindset than what you would think of from the sheep, who are not solitary creatures, by the way. They do live in a herd. The black sheep just stands out from the herd. So I'd say for a lot of people who have the Sigma personality, you might want to relate yourself more to the black sheep than a lone wolf, actually, because you come from that herd yourself. Now, one will say, is there a hierarchy in the herd? That's for another conversation. We could talk about that later. But we can say in society that there is a hierarchy that controls that particular herd. So amongst that herd, you might have a black sheep within that herd who may not necessarily behave any different than the other sheep, but it is spotted different amongst the sheep. It is treated differently. It might not behave any different than the other sheep, but it is treated differently. Could that affect this behavior down the road? Yes. So you sort of get an idea of what the Sigma personality could actually be like, which is totally separate from lone wolf, by the way. Hey, I see you, red pill in the wind. Yo, 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 what up, what up? So I'm just, when I hear content out here, most people just don't have certain terminologies aligned up. And it's just funny how when they say black sheep, lone wolf, and they make it the same when it's not, or when they even try to combine all that black sheep, lone wolf, and associate that with Sigma. No, none of that is related to each other, literally. Black sheep relates more to Sigma. Lone wolf does not relate to Sigma. Lone wolf is more related to all things that are enigmatic. It's beyond all these labels, not just hierarchy. We're talking about labels. Wolves are enigmatic. They don't live by labels. Now, ironically, sheeps get labeled. A black sheep gets labeled. A sheep actually gets a label put on it. Do wolves get labels put on them? No, they do get tracking collars, but that's just to find them while they're out there on their own alone. Sometimes with a black sheep, they're easier to spot because they're actually black sheep amongst the other sheep. So it makes you wonder, for one that grew up being a black sheep, what was your life like a black sheep? Simply put, amongst your family, you stood out from your family, but you were still part of your family. You wanted to still be part of your family. You couldn't see yourself living apart from your family. Over time, you probably had to learn how to live alone from your family because you weren't fully accepted by your family. To me, this is definitely totally textbook writing about Sigma. It gets no more Sigma than that, if you ask me. Now, this is totally separate from what lone wolf is. Because here's the thing, even though you're a black sheep, you might behave and act no different than your family, but they treat you different because you look different than them, right? The thing with the lone wolf is that you were different since you were born. There was something different about you, something different about your behavior. And literally, you come from a family like that in many ways. Sometimes you don't. So I guess amongst the human experience, one can associate having a lone wolf personality and still treat it like a black sheep at the same time. So we can attest to that, right? Because maybe you do look like your family, you're part of your family, but they treat you different because you do act different from them. Whereas you being a black sheep, you act no different than your family, but you're treated differently. And even with that said, that uh, causes you over time to sort of change your behavior. Whereas you being more of a lone wolf or enigmatic personality type, you already had this behavior or certain attributes about you from day one since you were young. Hey, what's good, Brown Do Life? Good to see you up in the building. Yes. It's just, I never understood, how one has not, to my knowledge, at least as of yet, as I can gather, has never tried to separate the idea of a black sheep and a lone wolf. They are actually not the same. But can you be treated a certain way from both aspects? Yes, I just covered that. Because maybe you might be gifted, enigmatic, something about you that makes you what? More lone wolf. But you're treated differently because of that. You see? So you get both the lone wolf and black sheep treatment from that aspect. So, hey, I got two caps I wear. Literally, I bought two caps from the cap store at the mall. One is lone wolf. Sometimes I also wear my black sheep cap, but I didn't understand until like a light bulb went off just a few days ago. Lone wolf and black sheep are not the same. So yes, to a certain extent, I've had to go through some type of Sigma experience in my life with the black sheep part, but I've always been a lone wolf. Okay. But I want more people to relate this idea of what Sigma is to black sheep, not lone wolf. Relate Sigma to black sheep, not lone wolf. Uh, Someone stay streaming, coming to you live from prison. Well, good to see you. Stay streaming. They do have they do have internet connections in prison. So don't know if you've been a black sheep or a lone wolf in your lifetime. Stay streaming. I know for sure they always talk about if one can actually survive as a lone wolf in prison. That's another conversation. Obviously, I'm staying in my own lane, but I do know that they talk about this idea of being a lone wolf in prison, but it's more so based on social dynamics, not really based on inherited dynamics of what being lone wolf actually is from an enigmatic standpoint. So yeah, with that said, that's really the main thing I just wanted to bring up. I didn't want this video to be too long, but yeah, just keep in mind, y'all, black sheep and lone wolf are not the same. Okay. But can you be treated or seen as both in some cases? Yes, you can be, especially amongst your family, because obviously, as the black sheep, you're seen different than them. You don't have the same fleece. But as the lone wolf, you've always been to yourself, you've always been a certain way from birth. Okay. So, yeah, Sigma is how you become a certain way. Being a lone wolf is how you were born a certain way and lived a certain way. So anybody that's been through a lot can easily relate to black sheep. You know what I'm saying? Anybody that's always been enigmatic or gifted in a certain way can relate to being lone wolf. But amongst you being gifted, you can still be treated as a black sheep, you know, as far as how you had to become to be, as far as not having a lot of family around you. So yes, I even confess that the Sigma experience has affected me in some ways, even though I've always been amongst myself for as long as I could have remembered, even now, but all through and through, I'm definitely lone wolf to the core. But I can relate to what being Sigma is like to a certain extent, just because of the way I've had to live, the way I've been treated amongst my family. And yeah, don't show no pity to me. I am gifted. I've been blessed. I'm still blessed, more blessings on the way. Don't feel sorry for me. Don't have no pity for me. I'm doing all right. I promise y'all. Now, when I was younger, I can say that, hey, it was a little hard trying to be like, why I'm treated this way, how I'm still treated this way to this day. But as an adult, it doesn't bother me because of all the blessings that have come my way, despite the black sheep treatment that I've gotten from a lot of my family over the years. But And that was just due to the enigmatic side of myself that I was always gifted a certain way. I've always been a certain way since I was young, versus someone who hasn't been a certain way since they were young and they had to figure their way out, but they got the way through it. That's why I respect someone like Dave Goggins. I believe that's his name. He's definitely an epitome of someone that has the Sigma background because he wasn't really the most gifted person. You can say even Kobe Bryant. He wasn't the most gifted individual either. But they worked very hard to get to where they at despite being stood out as a black sheep amongst their family. Yes, David Goggins, bingo, Brown Do Life. Uh, and see, when I talk about being Sigma here, I'm not trying to do it like y'all hear everybody out here that talk about Sigma as far as personality and Sigma male this and alpha male, beta male. No, I don't do none of that over here. I simply talk about the life and the experience one has because we all can relate to certain experiences, especially the whole black sheep part. Hey, what's good information, man? Show, I see you once again. Much peace and respect to you too. Now, there was a rapper that said something very cool because, a lot of folk around these spaces, and even, not just internet space like YouTube, but just in general, everybody now want to be a GOAT, greatest of all time. Of course, I like to say you can be the greatest of a time, not the greatest of all time. But most people refer to say that they prefer to say that they are the greatest of all time. Okay, whatever. But one person pointed out, man, I'd rather not be a goat. I'd rather be a black sheep. I'm like, yeah, I dig that. I dig that because that's more relatable to people. Despite your greatness, something is definitely different about you. You've been treated different. But see, even in that, even in that, even in that, this is where there still should be a special highlight about what is Sigma. Because how did that sheep get born black? Hmm. So even if you grew up a certain way amongst people, you were never a lead. Yeah, you were never a leader. You never was like a solitary type of person. You were always singled out. Well, something about you stood out in a way anyway. That sheep was born black. But maybe that kind of is the reversal of what I'm talking about. Maybe that's what makes something very enigmatic about that sheep, just literally that it was born black. Maybe nothing else is more special about it, but that's why I still relate it more to Sigma than Enigma. Because what that black sheep fleece represents is all the harsh treatment you would get based on you not having the same fleece. You're not, amongst the herd, you just stand out too much, you know, and you're gonna have to work a little harder to get to where you gotta go. Like, uh, there might not be nothing special or gifted about you. Like, it's funny when amongst Jordan, Kobe, they look at him, they like he didn't even have big hands. He couldn't even palm the ball. But he worked very hard at his craft to be the best one out there to play the game. Okay? Like Kobe was just a hard worker. That's where the whole mama mentality comes from. Okay? And even someone like David Goggins, he proved that you don't have to be gifted and none of that. You just got to have a big heart, even amongst society when they treat you different in the herd, and you have to kind of work a little harder to get to where you got to go. Like that requires a great heart. Like literally not really a gift you were born with, but a gift that was given to you amongst the people that try to curse you. Okay. Like this is really interesting. So I'm really highlighting this on a deeper level of what you've never heard about, even this idea of Sigma. Okay. And this is probably one of my deepest conversations I've ever had about this thing called Sigma. And it's for a reason, because you're not going to hear no one talk about it in this way. But yes, going back to Enigma, because that's more of the type of time I'm on, even though I can relate to Sigma as far as the way I've been treated as a black sheep at times. See, I've always been gifted. And that's literally why I was treated the way I was treated versus the way I guess I stood out. despite not being gifted. Okay, but so there you go. What they call that genetically, like a mutation, mutant. Yeah. So um that's they for the N word, right? Instead of saying the N word for so-called black people, they say the word ninja. And I just brought up the word mutant. So literally, as a teenage, I was a mutant ninja, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, but I wasn't a turtle. I guess I took my time with things like a turtle, right? But literally growing up, I was treated like a teenage mutant ninja that took his time like a turtle because I saw things. I carried myself a certain way. I still do to this day. But just wanted to highlight that for somebody. Yeah, I'm not really as big on making a lot of Sigma content like I used to, but every now and then people like, man, Ray, drop a gem, because I see myself more as a lone wolf than a Sigma. But every now and then I can drop these gems about Sigma in the sense of how, black sheep and lone wolf are not the same, and how there's a correlation there. If we look at the way our life has been, we can look back and be like, man, there was times I was treated like a black sheep, even though I feel more like a lone wolf, right? But maybe even as a black sheep, you were somewhat relatable to the idea of a lone wolf. Like you knew there would be a day where you would have to be on your own, even though you've been amongst a herd. You, you hope that you can figure out how to do a lot of things on your own. Uh, even though that's not in you. Like, and I'm not throwing shade when I say that. It's just that's just it. Like life does that to people, and that's what happened with someone like David Goggins. You know what I'm saying? Simply put. So, yeah, I don't want to stretch this video out too long. I just wanted to break this down in such a way. I hope y'all like this one a lot, and thanks a million for stopping by. Catch y'all on the next one.